Merely days passed since 11-year-old Christopher Sherratt's family moved from the city of Stoke in Staffordshire to the town of Blackpool in the country of Lancashire, northwest England, when a merciless, harsh tragedy struck. He wasn't happy about the move, but accepted reality. He was already making new friends and adjusting to the new location when his life ended abruptly, in a horrific, painful, and heartbreaking manner. The accident in which Christopher died took place in Blackpool's Pleasure Beach Park on one of the busiest weekends of the year because people were celebrating the end of the school year. He was riding a very popular outer space-themed enclosed rollercoaster called Space Invader when horror struck. His death was nothing short of a horrifying nightmare. Contrary to what many believe, Christopher did not die from the fall after getting ejected from his seat on the ride. The truth is more terrifying and heartbreaking than that. Stay tuned for the details of the horrifying death of Christopher Sherratt by the Space Invader roller coaster at Pleasure Beach Amusement Park. Pleasure Beach is an amusement park situated on Blackpool's south shore in the country of Lancashire, northwest England. The park was founded in 1896 by A.W.G. Bean and his partner, John Athwaite. The park is host to many records, including the largest collection of wooden roller coasters of any park in the United Kingdom. It was the first park in Europe to introduce a fully inverting steel coaster called Revolution, and is the last remaining park in the world to still operate a steeplechase roller coaster. The 1,035 feet long Space Invader ride, which killed Christopher Sherratt, was opened on 21st of August 1984. It was quite popular, and nearly 500,000 passengers used the ride every year. In 2003, it was refurbished in comeback coasters and reopened in 2004 as Space Invader 2. In September 2008, the ride closed following a failed evacuation during operating hours. As a result, the park closed the ride and later sold it to Breen Leisure Park. Since then, the ride has been refurbished and renamed Astro Storm prior to its opening in 2011. The original Space Invader ride, which resulted in the death of Christopher, was themed around a journey through space and was decorated with glow-in-the-dark pictures of stars, planets, and aliens. The queue and loading area were themed around the space station, and some parts of the queue were themed around Star Wars films. This dark theme design means that innocent Christopher died in almost complete darkness. On July 21st, 2000, Christopher Anthony Sherratt of Central Drive, Blackpool, was having a wonderful evening with two friends at Pleasure Beach Park. The place was packed with people of all ages, but especially school kids were celebrating the end of the school year. Before hitting the Space Invader ride, Chris and his friends took other rides, such as the Big One and the Maze. Everything was fine until about halfway around the track, when everything for Chris and his family changed forever. Around 8:30 p.m, Chris and his friends headed to the Space Invader attraction and got in the queue. Soon they were strapped to their seats with what can only be described as a safety belt, quite similar to that found in cars. Chris was sitting in the back seat as the carriage began moving at high speed. At some point, and for an unknown reason, Chris decided to reach out of the car, and at that moment the horror began as gravity took its course and began pulling him out of the moving carriage. At that moment, one of Chris's friends, Barry McKenna, turned around from his position in the middle of the carriage and sort of saw Christopher's body fall over the edge. He couldn't believe what he was seeing because it was too dark, and all he could see was Chris's white shirt going over the edge. Assuming the worst, he put his hand back onto Christopher's seat, hoping that his sight was merely affected by the darkness and glowing features in the ride tunnels, and that Chris was still there. Then came the shock and the panic. All he could find was an empty seat and a still fastened seatbelt. Christopher was not there. He began panicking, trying to make sense of what happened to his friend, and sadly had to endure the rest of the ride in pain, screaming for help, along with his other friend. Meanwhile, Chris was on the tracks, suffering from serious injuries but still alive. but to his bad luck, a second carriage was not far behind, and was mercilessly coming his way. The second carriage was occupied by a 10-year-old and a 13-year-old child. The kids in the second carriage didn't see him, and Chris probably didn't see them either. It was simply too dark. Sadly, Chris, injured and confused, had to endure the horrors of the darkness and the sound of a speeding carriage coming his way. What is even more horrific, experts believe that upon hitting the tracks, he cartwheeled down the track where he was hit by the next incoming carriage. The whole ordeal took less than a minute, and the operator was still unaware that something insanely horrific had just happened and a child was in extreme distress. The incoming carriage smashed into Chris at the terrifying speed of nearly 30 miles per hour. He died instantly. As soon as the carriage that was carrying his two other friends arrived at the end of the ride, their screams of "Our friend has gone missing" and tears alerted the staff. The ride was immediately halted and the emergency lights turned on. Emergency services were dispatched as the park staff began scouring the ride's tunnels for Christopher. Soon, his lifeless body was found. The paramedics pronounced him dead at the scene. A post-mortem revealed Christopher died from serious injuries sustained from the fall and collision. Christopher's death marked the 6th fatal accident at Pleasure Beach Park in almost half a century. Later, a court decided that no prosecution would be brought against Pleasure Beach, although health and safety executive officials believed that the strap holding him in place was not restraining him properly. Alan Jackson, a representative from the health and safety executive, said if he had remained correctly seated, there was little or no risk of him coming out of that ride under normal operational conditions. The jury at Blackpool's coroner's court heard how the schoolboy would have to have been reaching out of the car for the gravitational pull to take him over the edge and onto the track. However, Christopher's family, lawyers, and many others from the community believe that the ride's car-like safety belts are to blame, because they are simply not fit for a roller coaster. Christopher Sherratt's family was never the same, and they didn't go after the park for money. They believed that all the money in the world couldn't bring back their beloved little boy, or can make the pain go away. However, they did hire a lawyer and launched a lawsuit to persuade the park to make changes in order to make the rides across the park, including the Space Invader, safer. According to David Aird, the lawyer assigned by Chris's mother, while obviously nothing can be done to turn back the passage of time, Mrs. Sherratt's singular hope is that the circumstances of this accident have led to improvements in safety, which will ensure that she and other mothers never have to experience an event similar to this. The park responded by stating that while suggestions from the health and safety executive would not be dismissed, there were no plans for the seatbelts to be changed. The park was so arrogant and disrespectful they didn't even shut down the park on the day of the incident, as thousands of patrons carried on with their fun activities, oblivious to the accident that claimed the life of an innocent child. The park only shut down the ride until the investigations and inspections were complete, and soon it was reopened without upgrades to the safety straps. Were you there on that unfortunate day? Are you a frequenter of Pleasure Beach Park? What do you think about it? Let us know in the comment section below. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell button to get notified every time we upload a new video that will take you to the heart of the scenes and mysteries of some of the most terrifying incidents, accidents, disasters, and paranormal events from around the world.